Today on Free Field Training, we're going to be talking about dry fire practice. We're going to talk about how to do it safely and effectively if you're having trouble qualifying, whether you're brand new out of the academy and just haven't shot for a couple months, or if you're an old salt who's getting back into a position where having to qualify might be a bigger deal than it was in your old position, or if you're having trouble right now, like I am, getting to a legitimate range and popping rounds off. This has been a problem in the area that I work a whole bunch for decades because I am in a very urban area just on the south side of Chicago. And here, it's very expensive to go to the range. You're not just talking ammunition costs, but you're talking range fees and limited time that you have on the range, and then limited things you're able to do while you're on those indoor ranges. In order to go to an outdoor range and do outdoor range stuff and do actual training, you have to drive long distances, or it has to be a department-sanctioned event, and there aren't normally enough of those in a year, at least not for me and most people that take their job seriously and protecting the public seriously. So with dry fire practice, we've got a few options, and I'm going to go from the cheapest things that you can do almost right out the door today, go out and do somewhere safely, probably in your own home, and up to more expensive things that are going to tell you more information about the problems that you're having. Less dry fire practice and more dry fire actual training. The difference being practice is something that you do just to hone a skill, and training being when you're learning something new about the issues that you're having and the effectiveness of the things that you're practicing. So the easiest way to do dry fire practice is to use your duty pistol. Of course, all of these have been pre-safety checked since we're doing a training video in the backyard and we're talking about dry fire practice. There's no reason for any live ammunition to be anywhere nearby. But using your duty pistol, or ideally a duplicate of your duty pistol, one that you have for training and one that you have for the street, more about that maybe a little bit later, you simply assure that it is completely unloaded. No magazine, nothing in the chamber, maybe even run the slide a few more times and look in there and make sure it's still unloaded. There wasn't something hung up inside, some wackadoodle firearm that you happen to own and be doing dry fire training with. And then you have to pick a direction in which, even if after all of these safety checks are done, the gun is actually still loaded and goes off, it won't hurt anything or destroy anything that you don't want destroyed. A great way to do this is to get either a dedicated panel that is ballistic, rated for the same thing that your pistol is shooting out of it, and hang it up on the wall, putting a target on it. Index card works fairly well for these purposes, and then doing your dry fire practice, pointing the gun at this. Another great way to do this is to use a very large tree in an area there won't be other people, or using a concrete or brick wall as a worst case scenario, where if the round hits it, nothing is going to happen other than a little embarrassment and either breaking your ballistic panel or breaking off a piece of the wall or putting a round into a tree. It's important when you're doing dry fire practice to make absolutely certain two things. One, that the gun is in fact not loaded, and two, that if you make a mistake with the gun being unloaded, if the gun goes off, you're going to hit something that is not dangerous to anyone, including yourself. If you have absolutely nothing at your disposal other than your duty pistol and the stuff you use on duty, I suggest hanging the vest that you wear for work, which you should be wearing if you're carrying a pistol for work. Hang your vest up on the wall, put an index card on it, and use that as your backstop. Almost everyone should have those two things. After that, you make sure the gun's unloaded. You've got a backstop that you're absolutely 100% sure of and is not going to hurt other people. What you want to do is hold the pistol the way you would normally hold it if you were shooting, and then you're going to put the front sight on the target, line up your sights, and then slowly squeeze the trigger. And what we're looking for is we're going to be watching that front sight and seeing whether it dips down or to the side or up, and we're trying to keep that front sight as centered in the rear sight as humanly possible and as steady as humanly possible through that trigger press, and we're going to do them slowly. Ideally, what you want to do is do this about 10 trigger presses a day. If you do that, you're going to be a substantially better shooter because your finger and your brain and the connections between it are going to connect positive reinforcement of that front sight just vibrating instead of moving any direction, and the trigger braking and the pressure that you put on it and where you have your finger and where you have your hands, it's going to line all of that up, and when you go to do live fire, you're going to be a lot more successful at actually hitting your target. that is the 100% cheapest possible way to do it. If you want to add a level of complexity to it that can tell you an awful lot about exactly how well you're doing with that front sight, which can sometimes be difficult if you weren't a good shooter to start with, take a shell casing and place it on the top of the front sight. Not on top of the slide of the pistol, but on top of the front sight. What this will allow you to do is see whether you're breaking down or up or putting too much trigger in, or whether your front sight is moving around too much because that casing is going to fall off. This is best accomplished with two people, which is why I say it's a slightly more advanced thing. You need something other than just the stuff that you probably already have, i.e. you need another person to do that. Another great way, which I've talked about in my duty bag videos, you can see links up there and down below, of doing dry fire practice, practicing with a handgun when you can't get to a range, is really cheap, crappy BB guns. I know people don't like hearing this, especially everybody that lives their entire life on the internet, never actually has to depend on their firearm in real life, or people who make their money selling you more ammo or selling you more things and selling you range time and training classes. You want to talk about something that will greatly increase your ability to hit with your duty pistol? This is just a cheap BB gun. You can buy these at Walmart. The BBs for them are extremely cheap, whole boxes of them for $3 or $4. CO2 cartridges, also extremely cheap. And with these, even if you can't get to a legitimate range where you can practice drawing and shooting on the move and all of that, you can set targets out, you can put cans out somewhere in a wooded area or an industrial district or wherever else that you know you're not going to hit or break anything with the BBs, and you can shoot at them and you can practice drawing from your holster if you find a pistol that matches the holster that you already use. You can practice firing on the move. That's my favorite use for this, is getting new guys ready to shoot on the move, live fire. Give them a BB gun, have them do it. The fact that I'm saying a crappy BB gun is on purpose. You want the trigger to be as terrible as humanly possible. Just like when we're shooting a revolver, and revolver shooting makes us a better semi-auto shooter, shooting a really crappy BB gun with a terrible trigger, if you can manage the trigger on something like this from the discount bin at Walmart, you're going to be able to manage the trigger on something like this significantly better. You can do all the same things with that you do with your live pistol. If you live in a trailer or an apartment or somewhere you're not even comfortable doing dry fire practice in, you can use a BB gun. Don't load any ammunition into it. Don't load any CO2 into it. Use the BB gun to practice that same trigger control. You can do the same thing with a shell casing on top of the front sight. Just be aware that some of the front sights on BB guns not very big, and the shell casing won't actually fit on them. You may have to look at that to see if that's actually even an option for you with the shell casing on the front sight bit. Finally, there's electronic aids, and the one that I found that kind of spurred this on, when I was at SHOT Show, there's a company called Mantis X, and they make a little doohickey and an app. And what you can do with them is you can attach, I'll show you right here, you can attach their little doohickey, which is a motion sensor, and it basically does the same thing the shell casing would do, but it's far more sophisticated and gives you statistical analysis of what you're doing and immediate feedback, and you don't need a second person, which is fantastic. So this little thing on here is the sensor. USB charges. It's got an indicator light of whether it's on or off, and it easily slides on and off the gun by means of just a little throw lever, and you slide it on any 1913 rail, or a Glock rail for that matter. Of course, you want to make sure the gun is unloaded before you do that, but in this case, it doesn't really matter too much, because what I found out is I can take this little sensor and I can mount it onto very realistic BB pistols, pellet pistols actually. This one is a SIG P226 look-alike BB pistol. It's actually heavy. It has a fairly realistic trigger pull, both double action and single action. It allows you to practice DA to SA transitions, or just double action, or just single action. It's very, very lifelike and realistic. The problem with this Mantis X, these electronic systems, is that they require that you use a higher end BB pistol in order to do them. You can't just do them on the Walmart $15 special. But this BB pistol is only really $100. I got a green one, so that way I would never I would never mistake them with the other actual guns that I have. So this is a non-gun solution for most of the problems that we have with dry fire practice. What this thing does is as you're shooting the BB pistol, it gives you immediate feedback about your shots, and you can watch them on the app that they have, and it'll give you immediate feedback. So you don't have to shoot this at the screen of whatever device you're using it on. I'm using it on an old Kindle Fire tablet, very cheap one at that. It'll give you a score, so when you shoot the pistol, it'll score your trigger pull. What it's doing is it's sensing the cycling of the slide and all of the motion directly before the cycling of the slide. Not only will it give you an immediate score, it also gives you auditory feedback. So when you get a good hit, good trigger pull, it gives you a ding, just like you were shooting a steel plate. And if you get a bad trigger pull, a bad hit, it gives you a that tells you weren't doing so well. And in the settings, it allows you to change at what score you get a ding and at what score you get a with 100 being pretty hard to actually accomplish and 90 being fairly difficult. You can set it as low as 65 if you have somebody that's brand new and you're just trying to teach them the basics of trigger pull, and as high as 99 for yourself so that you can know when you're getting that trigger pull absolutely right. It's a great way to practice DA to SA transitions. This isn't just useful for dry fire practice, it's also great for live fire practice. I've mounted this onto my duty pistol before, taken it to the range and shot, and it'll tell you with the auditory feedback and in a score, and allow you to look back at your old scores in the history section and see where all of your rounds would have landed if you were pointing at a bullseye when you started pulling the trigger, and where you would have pulled it off to the side or whatever. And it breaks down for each shot where it was and what probable problem was with the shot. Even if it's a good hit, you could get a 98%. It'll say, ooh, it was just a little too much trigger. Ooh, it's just a little too much tightening on the grip. It's a great analysis tool for live fire, and it's a great tool for dry fire practicing. Of course, I'm not sponsored by Mantis X. This is just something that I found at SHOT Show. I would be happy to take their money though, because this is a great product that I personally use and love. Now, the one downside of this system is the total cost. Between the pistol, the Mantis X system, and a tablet, if you were to buy it all new, it's almost as much as buying a new pistol or a good used pistol. But it allows you to train anywhere at any time with very, very little risk at all, and gives you lots of great feedback. And the ability to actually use it live fire as well, to establish whether or not the things that you're practicing on your off time are really transitioning over to your primary pistol. Great, great option. So those are some options for dry fire practice and how to accomplish it safely. We're going to go to the Instagram live stream comments and questions now and see what all of them have to say, and then we'll see you guys next week.
Drills they did with us, and then they, like you said, the dummy rounds, and then I'll take the dummy rounds and then do the like cat rack ready and all that stuff. Do a lot of the malfunction drills with it. It's not actually firing, but going through the motions with malfunctions, doing them two-hand, doing them one-handed, taking your sights and racking them off your belt or your boot or whatever.
A lot of those are really good points. Maybe we should do a separate video just on dummy rounds and some of the training opportunities that we have with them. It might be a good idea when I get back to my brother's range. I can demonstrate a lot of that, get some B-roll, and then do one of these to put B-roll over it. Because that's what I'm doing here, is I'm shooting this is the A-roll, and then I'm going to collect a bunch of B-roll of doing this stuff and put it over the top of it, so it's more interesting for people. All right, you have anything else? I got to go to other comments and questions, so I have something to put at the end of the video.
Nah, I'm good, dude. But appreciate everything you do. I'm training officer too, so I pulled a lot of stuff from you that I've learned from you from your videos, and I'm like, that don't work for me.
Yeah,
Didn't teach it to our new guys.
I'm real big on the hooty hoo workaround ways of getting stuff done, as long as it's effective. Yeah. Like, why beat your head up against the wall? All right, I'm gonna go to other comments. Thanks for stopping in, man.
Be safe, brother.
You too. All right. So I'm actually going to go from the bottom to the top so that people that are still here, I can get to their questions. Hello from Missouri. Hello. I think I found an interesting way of dry firing. If I remember, it's called stress gun. Haven't heard of that. I've heard of other dry fire practice pistols. The NLT pistol, the CERT pistol. There's magazines that you can put into your duty pistol that'll automatically cycle the action on a striker fire, so you can keep pulling the trigger. Just like the BB pistols, even the really high-end ones, The trigger's never going to be exactly the same on those, but it's close enough that, you know, it gets the job done. NHphoto.com says, Mantis X helped me a lot. It's helped me a lot, and I'm a fairly good shooter. My problem is I can't get to the range enough. Nobody has enough money to get to the range as much as they want to here, and so this has been a ride. I actually had kept my Glock 22 as an understudy to my Glock 35 so that I could keep it in my locker and every day pull it out and do 10 rounds dry fire practice with it. And I was doing the BB gun on midnights, and then I found the Mantis X, and they actually had the same setup at SHOT Show, and that's why I bought this, because this is the setup they had at SHOT Show. And I was talking to one of the sales guys, and I was like, dude, this is really cool, this would work great. And I guess they have one for long guns too, but I was like, man, like, what is that pistol that you're using, and how does this work? And I was sitting there calculating it while I was playing with it at SHOT, and I was 100% sold. I was like, I have to get one of these, one way or the other. I have to get one of these, and it's been a really great training aid. Like I said, I took it and used it live fire too, and it works even better live fire. Jakes2 says, what's the best way to do this with the rifle? Kind of the same concept. Kind of. All of these are still applicable with rifles. Just be a lot more careful with your backdrop with rifles for obvious reasons. Owen as a sippy cup says, I'm also near your location-wise. Places to shoot can be expensive and hard to find. BB guns in your basement, backyard are great. The basement, if you have a basement, that's a great place to do any of this stuff. Because you know for sure there's a wall, it's concrete, and behind that is dirt, and that round's not going anywhere. Probably should have mentioned that to start with. You got a basement, that's the place to do this at, no doubt. Hey, thanks for watching Free Field Training on YouTube. While you're here, check out one of our other videos, or head on over to the Patreon and see how you can get your name put on your videos like these fine folks over here. All the links are in the description, of course. We'll see you guys next time.